Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of April and May. I haven't had the best reading months, so that's why I'm just combining them recently. Definitely not even close to meeting my reading goal for the year, so we're just gonna kind of go with the flow. I'm gonna show you the physical books that I read, which I think there's quite a few, and then we'll talk about the online books, like the books that I read on my Kindle that I don't own the physical copy of. But yeah, let's just start in like a random order that I have the books over here, and I'm just happy to be back. Starting with A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. This is a thriller book about this girl whose dad, it turns out to be a serial killer, and then 20 years later everything starts happening again. A bunch of girls go missing and she has to relive all of that. It has a very good plot. It was one of those books that kept me on my toes, and I was suspicious of every single character, and I consider that a very good thriller. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars, and yeah, I stand by that rating. Then I had to do a reread of Love and Other Words because I was in the biggest reading slump ever, and actually rereading a book that has already brought me comfort before. It's just the exact same thing. It's just the thing to do to get me out of that slump. So this book, if you're not familiar with Love and Other Words, it's actually the newer cover. I have the original, the OG orange cover from like 2 years ago. That was the last time I read this book. This is a romance book. It's a second chance romance. These two kids met at a vacation home. They both really like to read. It's a book about people who love books. That's my favorite comfort read ever. Second chance romance. It goes back in time, so alternating timelines as well, and it's just the sweetest book ever. Probably one of my favorite second chance romances, and it's not even a trope that I really go for often. Then we read King of Battle and Blood by Adrian's one of the characters. King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett Sinclair. Okay, so this is the same author that wrote this other book that I just got. So this is a fantasy book. I would say if you want a very rich fantasy book, don't read this because it's definitely highly focused on the romance. This is a fantasy book about the king of vampires who decides to marry the daughter of a human king, but you get to really know his character. I wouldn't say there's a lot of character development, but you do get to see that he's not as bad as, you know, people make him out to be. And this is book number 1 of the series, and I'll definitely say that it wasn't my favorite first book of a series. I rated this book 3 out of 5 stars. I do think the world building is really poor, and because of that I just really wasn't that into it. I do like the vampire aspect of it. I'm a Twilight lover. Anything with vampires in it I'm going to go for, but this was just kind of underwhelming. But I really like the writing style of this author, so I'll continue to read her books. Probably the best book that I read this month, or this past 2 months, this is Happy Place by Emily Henry. This book came out in March, but I don't think I ended up finishing it in March. I ended up finishing this book last month, April. I finished this book in April. So this book is a second chance romance as well. I think it's a trope that I'm definitely starting to enjoy a lot more. Emily Henry's writing improved so much in this book. It's almost like you're reading a modern classic. It was just so, it wasn't just a romance book. I feel like her books are more so appropriately categorized in the women's fiction genre, because it's not just focused on the romance. There's a lot of character development, and it's almost like you're reading a journal about you in your 20s and 30s when you're trying to figure out, you know, how much you've changed and who you're trying to become. And it's a really great book. But essentially there's this group of friends that meet at this lake house every year, and there's a little bit of fake dating here because she was engaged to someone in the friends group, and they were planning on telling everybody when they met again, but everything just kind of fell apart because he was there at the lake house and she wasn't expecting him to be there. And I don't know, the character development in this book is probably one of the best that I've ever seen. But Emily Henry definitely just blew me out of the water with this new release. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. This book has been circulating on booktok forever, so I just had to read it. It's called Deserping and the Wings of Night. This is also a vampire-esque book. It's a fantasy book. I do think the world building that this author has taken upon, it's really good. She's really good at just not only highly descriptive language, but she does keep it brief enough that you're not just like bored listening to, you know, how the city looked or look when they died and all of that. It's not that descriptive, but it's descriptive enough that I feel like the world building was very rich enough for me to enjoy. I haven't read a lot of high fantasy, so I can't really judge the world building of a lot of books, but I do think that the world building in Avatar is probably one of the best world buildings that I've ever read, and this kind of compares to that a little bit. So this is this nightborn vampire king that adopted a human daughter, and then he wants her to enter this tournament that's kind of like the Hunger Games. And when she enters this tournament, she meets the love interest. His name is Rain. The plot twist at the end of this book is what made me rate this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars, because it was insane. And I'm already reading book number 2. Hopefully I finish it next month. And yeah, I definitely recommend this fantasy book. Then I read Before We Were Strangers by Brenda Carlino. This is also a second chance romance. I feel like this was a trope that I really read in the past 2 months. That's why I'm starting to get a little tired of it. I read this book 5 out of 5 stars. It is set in New York, which is one of my favorite book settings. They also have alternating timelines between when they were in college and now. And yeah, I do really like the character development of this book. It is a very swoon-worthy romance book, but then it also feels so real, the way she writes the characters. And I like it when authors make fictional characters feel real, so that's why I love this book so much. Another Stacey Willingham book. This is called All the Dangerous Things. I love this book, but I don't think I liked it as much as A Flicker in the Dark. I feel like now thinking back on it, the plot twist was a little bit underwhelming. This is about a woman whose toddler son goes missing, and it just kind of takes you through the process in which she's been not only grieving his loss, but like trying to find out what happened, trying to find her son again. And yeah, she's good at making everyone seem suspicious, which is a very Frida McFadden like trait in thrillers, but I liked it, but it wasn't like amazing. Now, I read Heartless by Marisa Meyer. This is probably my new all-time favorite book. I love this fantasy standalone book so much. So this is my first fantasy standalone book that I have ever read, and it takes place in the Alice in Wonderland setting. Reading blog for this book and other fantasy books, where I read fantasy books for a week, and honestly I don't think any fantasy book, my tummy's just making noises, sorry. I don't think there's gonna be a fantasy book that's gonna top this for me. This book broke my heart. It's a book that I still think about to this day, and few books I can say have done that to me, where I just like can't stop thinking about the characters, the pain and the angst. So this is about a retelling of Alice in Wonderland, and it's about one specific character, which is the Queen of Hearts, and I'm just gonna leave it at that, because I do feel like if I go into more detail I'm gonna be spoiling some stuff. I feel like essentially going into it, if you read the description, you're going to know that you're entering a retelling and the ending is already kind of already predictive for you. But maybe go into it just blindly and be ready for heartbreak. Then let's talk about the books that I read that were in physical books. So I think I only read 2 Kindle books. One of them was Throttled by Lauren Asher. This is The Dirty Air, book number 1. This is a Formula 1 book. Honestly, I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars because it was entertaining. The romance was just kind of there. I don't think, it's almost like I felt with that one cowboy romance where I feel like the focus was like so much on the sport and not as much in the chemistry, and it wasn't a very angsty romance, which it's my preference. It was very like, it was more based on lust that it was love, and that's not really something that I look for in romance. So I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I honestly don't even remember the main characters' names. I haven't thought about this book once since I read it, so that's why it was just kind of there. Then I read Never Lie by Frida McFadden. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. This is a great book, okay? Really liked how they wrote this lady, because she was so morally gray, and then it almost made you believe like there are really, you know, people who can be that morally gray in a profession like this. It's just shocking. The plot twist of it, the characters, how everything tied together. Like I said, she makes you be suspicious of every single character, and she does that so well that you can just really distract from all your suspicions, but then you end up not really figuring out who did it. This wasn't really a who did it type of thriller. There's so much more, so I really enjoyed it. It's about this one therapist shrimp that goes missing, and then this couple goes to visit their house because there's like a showing or something, and they get stranded there because there's a snowstorm. and it all just kind of takes up from there. And I give this book 4 out of 5 stars. So this brings us to the end of this video. I feel like I'm a little rusty talking about books because it's been a very long time since the last time I filmed a book video, a reading wrap up. So, you know, just bear with me. I promise I'll do a little bit better at posting on my channel this month. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys a little, you know, summary of all the books that I've read in the past 2 months. Let me know what books you read this month. Let me know what was your favorite book that you read this month. It's open for recommendations, and make sure they're Kindle Unlimited recommendations because I'm in a big book buying band right now. But yeah, I just wanted to pop on here and say thank you so much guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye guys.